So the U.S. is feeling pain. So more directed action. And also, you know, the auto workers are saying that Canada needs to put in place a policy in which businesses are told do not move to the U.S. and expect to continue attracting business here.
I'm going to press pause for a moment because the leader of the Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, has just stepped up to the microphone. We anticipate he will make some comments about these most recent tariffs from Donald Trump. Let's take a listen in live to those.
He will be an amazing member of Parliament, putting Canada first and bringing change, desperately needed change, to this country. Yesterday, many Canadians watched with anger and anxiety as President Trump once again attacked our country and our jobs. Until yesterday, many Canadians, including me, still held out hope that President Trump might come to his senses and spare us of additional tariffs. Just last Friday, Mark Carney said he had a, quote, very productive, very constructive call with President Trump, citing progress. Unfortunately, Canada has not been spared. There is no progress, and there was nothing constructive or productive about Trump's tariff announcement. At midnight last night, Canada was being hit with new and completely unjustifiable tariffs on autos, in addition to the existing tariffs on lumber, steel, and aluminum. The Prime Minister also said last night that we can expect even more tariffs on our lumber, our pharmaceuticals, semiconductors, and copper. Meanwhile, global markets are in turmoil. Our seniors are wondering what will happen to their savings after the tariff madness that came from the White House yesterday. Millions of Canadians woke up to the fear of losing their savings or their jobs. It's clear that tariffs must end. It's clear that Canadians must stand together. And I'm here to reassure Canadians that united, we will get through this together. We will strengthen our country and stand up for our workers. First and foremost, we must support workers and their families. So to the hardworking Canadians and businesses directly hit by these unjustified tariffs, I say, your concerns are my concern today. We are here for you. A new Conservative government will make it a priority to keep industry moving and workers working. We know that once the link between worker and job is broken, it can take months or years to rebuild it. That's why it is much more economically affordable and much more important from the well-being of a family to keep the job in place. Millions of Canadians
woke up this morning wondering what are the consequences of Trump's tariffs for them and their family. We must put an end to tariffs, but in the meantime, we need to take care of ourselves. Before anything, we need to support our workers and their families. To all Canadians who work hard in our businesses, who are affected by these tariffs, I want to say we share your concerns today, and we will be there for you. The priority of a Conservative government will be the protection of jobs. We know that once the relationship broken between a worker and their employer, it's difficult to reestablish, which is why we need to keep people at work for as long as possible.
In Oshawa, Cambridge, Brampton, Windsor, Essex, St. Catharines, Oakville, Alliston, Woodstock, Ingersoll, and elsewhere. That's why I'm announcing today that a new Conservative government will eliminate the federal sales tax on Canadian-made automobiles. Everyone who's looking to buy Canadian, to support Canadian workers, will be able to save money as a result of this announcement. Axing the GST on a $50,000 Canadian-made automobile will save $2,500 to the car buyer. By saving cash-strapped Canadians' families their hard-earned money, we will increase demand for Canadian-made cars and keep more workers on the job. And I'm calling on the premiers to match our policy and remove their portion of provincial sales tax on Canadian-made automobiles. This will have the double effect of supporting workers in the auto sector and also tackling the Liberal inflation crisis that has made everything more expensive. Both federal and provincial sales taxes, were they removed, would save up to $7,000 for the purchase of the average $50,000 car. C'est pourquoi j'annonce aujourd'hui.
That's why I'm announcing today that a new Conservative government will abolish GST on new cars made in Canada as long as Donald Trump's tariffs are in place on our cars. Canadians are solidarity and want to support our workers, which is why we will make our cars more affordable. Abolish GST on new cars of $50,000 will save $2,500. This measure will help Canadian families to support their workers here in Canada, here at home, at the same time as we save money for our families that have already been hurt previously. So this will mean we can maintain demand for cars built in Canada, and workers will be able to continue working, having work to do. I'd invite provincial premiers to adopt their own proposition to abolish their own provincial tax, which will bring the savings up to $7,000 for a $50,000 car. This is two birds with one stone. We will save money for families that are suffering because of liberal inflation, but it will protect jobs here in Canada and put Canada first.
Big savings. For example, on a new Chevy Silverado from the factory in Oshawa, a new Honda CR-V from Alliston, a Toyota RAV4 from Woodstock, or a new Chrysler Pacifica from Windsor, and all the other affected industries, we have your back. We will stand with you. We know that some of these plants are temporarily shut down or are closed for retooling, but we will keep them eligible if and when they do reopen, and we will continue to monitor the list of vehicles made in Canada and add and subtract automobiles from eligibility based on the Canadian content that they have. I announced yesterday as well that a Conservative government, a new Conservative government, will protect workers for a change. We will set up the Keeping Canadians Working Fund. This will be a temporary targeted loan program for businesses directly hit by Trump's tariffs to allow them to keep workers on the job until we get through this tariff madness. We will start with a fund of $3 billion. These will be loans, not expenditures, and we will use the money to lend to companies who are desperate to keep employees on the payroll throughout this period of uncertainty and tariff obstacles, so that those workers can keep working, keep paying taxes, can keep supporting their families. At the same time, I will push hard to end the tariff madness. On my first day on the job as Prime Minister, I will call the President and demand that we rapidly renegotiate the CUSMA agreement on a very tight timeline. That will allow us to find certainty. I will also propose that in the meantime, both sides suspend tariffs. To be clear, no counter tariffs from Canada will be removed unless and until the Americans do the same. But the argument to President Trump will be this: put aside the uncertainty, the job loss, and stock market crashes on both sides of the border. Pause the tariffs until we can hammer out a deal. Now, that deal will have to be in the Canadian interest. First and foremost, we will protect Canadian sovereignty. Certain things will be non-negotiable. We will protect our land, our water, our laws, our government, our culture, our language policies, and our borders will always be exclusively under our control. Second, we will demand an end to all tariffs, free trade, both ways. But third, we believe we can convince the Americans it's in their national and security interest to get a deal, because we will use all the proceeds of that deal, all of the economic benefits that flow into the federal coffers, to massively rebuild our military so that we can carry our weight and keep our continent safe. This will create a powerful incentive for Americans to say yes. But, of course, there's no guarantee with Trump. As we're learning, nobody in Canada can control Donald Trump, contrary to many of the suggestions and the unrealistic expectations that some have been setting. Which is why I have to make clear, and I will be making clear to President Trump, that any commitments we make that America wants to happen on defense, border cooperation, or market access can and will be instantaneously withdrawn if he violates any part of the agreement. We will only uphold our side of the bargain as long as he holds up his side of the bargain. That's how we create the leverage to protect against a president who changes his mind and breaks his word. Still, no one can control President Trump, and no one can predict what he will do. The only thing we can control is what we do here at home. And that's why the best way to stand up to President Trump is to make our economy stronger and more independent from the Americans. The economic plan I've been announcing throughout this election is to unleash our industry, to make it strong, self-reliant, sovereign, so that we can stand on our own 2 feet and stand up to President Trump. My plan will cut income taxes for all Canadians so hard work pays off for a change. We'll eliminate the industrial carbon tax so that we can bring back steel, manufacturing, aluminum, fertilizer, oil and gas, and other heavy industrial products that are the backbone of a modern economy. It will allow Canadians to allow tax-free reinvestment of capital gains, which means that companies can reinvest in beautiful factories that employ Canadian workers like this one. I just spoke to Chandra, who started up this place. All of this stuff, all these machines that these incredible workers operate, that is investment. The more of these machines, the more of these factories we have, the more powerful paychecks we will generate, and the more we will be independent from Trump. A tax-free reinvestment in Canada of capital gains will be like rocket fuel for our economy, allowing us to soar over the American economy. I will axe the sales tax off new homes to get more homes built and create more demand for the Canadian lumber that Donald Trump is attacking. Build Canadian homes with Canadian wood, supporting Canadian loggers and tradesmen. For the last 10 years, the Liberals have had their boot to the neck of our energy sector. But it's not dead yet, and my plan will bring it roaring back to life. I will relaunch our energy sector by repealing Liberal No New Pipelines Law C-69 and lifting the Liberal energy cap to produce more energy. Mark Carney has said he will keep the legal ban on pipelines in the C-69 and that he will keep the energy cap. That is economic suicide. It is another reason why President Trump has supported Mark Carney's re-election in this campaign. Not just more pipelines, but more LNG, large-scale mines, and nuclear projects. It will send hundreds of billions of dollars. If Mr. Carney goes ahead with C-69, he will be blocking pipelines, mines, nuclear plants, and other projects, sending hundreds of billions of dollars fleeing south right into the hands of Donald Trump. And it means that Western Canadians will never be able to sell their oil directly to Eastern Canadians. Instead, we'll have to keep passing our energy south at a discount and even sending energy through the American economy just to send it back to Quebec and Ontario. That is not change. That is more of the lost Liberal decade. And the choice on resources is this. After a lost Liberal decade of driving our jobs south and driving our economy under the American thumb, do the Liberals deserve a fourth term in power, or is it time to unlock our resources, bring home our jobs, and become a strong economy for a change with a new Conservative government? Le plan économique que je présente dans cette campagne
The
électorale.
economic plan I'll be presenting in this campaign is a plan to liberate our industry for Canada to be a strong and sovereign nation, able to stand up in front of Donald Trump's threat. Will eliminate taxes on income for all Canadians who reinvest in Canada. Will eliminate the carbon tax on industry, and will do it for all. Forever. This plan will enable people to reinvest capital gains free of tax unless it's invested here in Canada. We will be masters here. It means Canadians will be able to paying to the government when they pay paychecks. We'll also create jobs where growth is given and giving them tools, education, and technology that they need to be competitive. I will abolish the sales tax on new homes to stimulate construction and demand for our lumber. Over the past 10 years, the Liberals have they blocked GNL Quebec, a project that would have helped the steel industry and in Quebec, all the while in helping us go around the U.S. for our resources. We will also eliminate the ceiling on energy that the Liberals have put in place and that Mr. Carney would maintain. We would eliminate C-69, the anti-development project, an anti-constitutional project that would stop the building of large projects throughout Canada. Unfortunately, Mr. Carney continues supporting exactly the same economic policies that have made our economy drop over the past 10 years and which do not represent change. The last thing that Donald Trump wants is a prime minister that will make our economy competitive and limit the exploitation of natural resources. Mr. Trump doesn't want us to be masters at home. He wants to keep Canada weak with weak economic policies of the Liberals. That's why he gave his support to Mark Carney. I will reinforce our economy, liberate our resources, cut bureaucracy, tax and income tax to reward work here in Canada. We will be triumphant over the enemy in front of us. Canadians should be reassured we are a strong people, a united people, and we will stand up in front of Trump's threats with change to put Canada first. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. We'll now take questions from the floor.
Good morning, Mr. Poilievre. My name is Bill Hutchins with Kingstonist.com.
Hi, Bill.
How are you?
Well, great. How did you like our rally yesterday?
It was nice. Big crowd.
Very big. How many people do you think were there?
3,000 to 4,000.
It's pretty big. When was the last time you had that in Kingston?
It's been a while.
Yeah.
But I understand, too, that a lot of your supporters came out from across the region as well, not just this riding. So
that was nice of them in this rain. It was a rough night to drive in. I don't know. Did John A. MacDonald have crowds like that when he was the MP here?
He may have had a few crowds around City Hall back in the day. As a matter of fact, I was going to ask you about one of the questions I'm going to ask you is about putting Sir John A.'s statue back in Kingston and the impact that might have on Indigenous relations and truth and reconciliation. But I did want to also touch on this other question here that experts have predicted that Kingston will be kind of shielded from the impact of the severest impact of the tariff war, partly because we're a government town. Lots of government employees, including a large military base, as you know. But you talk about slashing government jobs and bureaucracy as part of your platform. So I want to know what you would say to those anxious federal workers in this and other communities across the country. Are their jobs safe in these uncertain times?
Yes, we've said our reductions in the federal bureaucracy will be done by attrition. We have 17,000 public servants who voluntarily leave every single year, many to retire, many to accept other job opportunities. And that allows us to reduce the cost of the bureaucracy without giving out mass pink slips. I would also add that we're going to expand our military, which will be great for Kingston because of the wonderful military footprint we have here. I think we also know that there are a lot of entrepreneurs, small businesses, manufacturing businesses like this one here, CanCoil, who will benefit from my Canada First economic plan to bring home jobs. We're going to cut income tax so that workers pay 15% less to the federal government off their paycheck. That'll support local businesses who will have richer customers buying more food and more products. We'll bring in the Canada First reinvestment tax cut, zero capital gains tax on reinvested gains so that we can grow our economy. We'll get rid of the industrial carbon tax to bring back industry jobs. We will also speed up home building. There's an enormous housing shortage here in Kingston. By axing the federal sales tax on new homes and incentivizing municipalities to speed up permits, we're going to be building homes, creating jobs for carpenters, electricians, plumbers, and others. After the lost Liberal decade of rising costs and crime and a falling economy now under America's thumb, we can't afford to give Liberals a fourth term. We need a new Conservative government that will axe taxes, build homes, unleash our resources, and bring home our jobs for a change. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
The statue, I mean, I believe we should put the John A. Macdonald statue back up. I mean, you agree with that? What do you think? Look, it was John A. Macdonald who first had the vision of resisting American annexation. His entire life was dedicated to a great East-West nation. That's why he put together Confederation and why he built the railroad. An East-West railroad was designed to bind us together with iron and steel. And that's exactly what we need to do now. We need East-West pipelines, roadways, transmission lines, and other resources that will link our nation from east to west and reverse the hopeless reliance the Liberals have made us face with the Americans. You know, President Trump wants to keep our economy weak by supporting Mark Carney and keeping the Liberals in power for a fourth term. But what's good for President Trump is not what's good for Canada. We need a new government who will put Canada first for a change. And that includes standing up for and uniting around our brilliant history. And that history includes John A. Macdonald. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Yeah. Good morning.
Hi, Abigail Beeman, CTV News. Your party has dropped 4 candidates in 2 days. How can Canadians be convinced of your vetting process for people you believe are fit to govern this country? And here in Kingston, how does that vetting process extend to Mr. Patterson for his previous connection to a church that supported conversion therapy?
Well, first of all, you omitted from your question that Mr. Patterson renounced conversion therapy years ago. And so the question is not accurate. Secondly, our vetting process is stronger than all the other parties. That's why we have a zero tolerance for anyone who acts unacceptably. This is the exact opposite of what we saw from Mr. Carney, who tried to keep on as a candidate someone who had asked for his Conservative opponent to be handed over to the Chinese Communist government on a bounty, to be imprisoned or maybe murdered, because he was a dissident against that government. Mr. Carney said that it was a teachable moment. He's right. It taught all of us that Mark Carney will never put Canada first. He sold out. He went to China to get a $250 million loan from the Chinese government while he was Justin Trudeau's economic advisor. He met with top officials in the central bank. He met with the mayor of Beijing. He built his own profit off of compromising himself and his company. He still has those compromises because he has money, untold millions, invested in Brookfield that owes all of this money still to the government in Beijing. So how are we going to know when he's acting for Canada rather than acting for his bottom line? And that's why I reiterate my call. Your question was about vetting. Well, Canadians should be able to vet Mark Carney's conflicts of interest by having him publish all of his financial interests so that Canadians know what interests he has that go against Canada's national interests. After the lost Liberal decade of selling out our economy, driving away our resources, taxing away our jobs, we can't afford to give Liberals a fourth term. We need a new Conservative government that will bring home the jobs to this country so we can stand up for ourselves in a position of strength for a change. Thank you.
En français.
Merci beaucoup. Ça montre que nous avons.
Thank you very much. It shows that we have discipline to check the quality of our candidates. I would add that it's exactly the opposite with Mr. Carney, who tried to keep in place a candidate that encouraged people to give or his conservative adversary to the Chinese government to be killed or imprisoned. Mr. Carney kept them in place. He never decided to throw out that candidate. And right after Mr. Carney went to China to receive a loan from the government bank of about $250 million, with that conflict of interest still being in place. And speaking of verification of our candidates, I encourage Mr. Carney to publish all of his financial interests so that all Canadians can see the conflicts between the national interests of Canada and foreign interests that go against our country. Thank you.
Good morning, Sarah Rachel,
Good morning.
Canadian Press.
Thank
Yesterday in an op-ed, Preston Manning wrote that people in Eastern Canada need to recognize, he said, that a vote for the Liberals is a vote for Western secession and a breakup of the country as we know it. Do you agree with Mr. Manning, and what do you say to people who feel that way?
No, we need to unite the country. We need to bring all Canadians together in a spirit of common ground. Let's unite our nation, because after the lost Liberal decade of blocking resource jobs, driving $500 billion out of our economy to the U.S., taxing away our workers, and selling out our country, we can't give the Liberals a fourth term in power. What we need is a new Conservative government that will unite Canadians, unleash our resource production, cut taxes on our workers and entrepreneurs so that we can bring home our jobs and stand up to President Trump from a position of strength for a change. Thank you.
En français.
No, je suis en faveur de.
So no, I am in favor of Canadian unity because after the last Liberal decade that divided our country, threw out $500 million of investments towards the U.S., blocked our natural resources, and weakened our economy
Federal
vis-a-vis
Conservative